Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim podcast. And if you're going to talk or even think about slim, I can't tell you how many people have sent me an email or a Facebook message or a tweet or a fax. Well, actually no faxes, saying there's one guy you have not had on your show yet. And if you're going to have the freaking word slim in your title of your podcast, you've got to have him on. You've undoubtedly seen him. He speaks all over the world. He's been all over television, all over the media, all over just about any nutrition documentary you see. Today's guest is in there. That's because he is a super inspirational guy, very positive message, very charismatic individual, and really out there helping people to live better lives via his method, which he calls the Gabriel Method, a mind-body, non-diet approach to weight loss. John Gabriel, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
John, for the few people out there that don't know your story, and I say few because you've been telling it very well for quite some time, can you give us your background?
Sure. I lost, back about 10 years ago, I lost about 220 pounds after struggling with weight for a long period of time, trying every diet I could, including working face-to-face with Dr. Atkins, going to the Pritikin Institute, working with acupuncturists, homeopaths, doctors, naturopaths, everyone I could. And being frustrated, I came to a place, this is back in 2001, where I was over 400 pounds. And I decided I was never going to diet again because I knew that there was something else that was causing my weight gain. And it wasn't just about calories in and calories out, because there was a time when I never had to worry about weight. And all of a sudden, back in 1990, I moved to New York. I started gaining and gaining and gaining. No diet worked. I decided I was never going to diet again. And instead, I was going to try to figure out what triggered my weight gain, what was the real thing that was going on. And I stopped dieting. I started doing a lot of biochemical research. I had a foundation or a background in biochemistry from the University of Pennsylvania, and it gave me enough of a foundation to go on the internet. And I started studying everything I could about the hormones and the enzymes involved in weight gain and weight loss. And I also studied everything I could about stress because I knew that stress was a big component for me. And I started to understand what was happening with me. And basically what was happening with me and what's happening with people all over the world is there's a trigger that happens, a switch that goes off in your body that forces you to gain and gain and gain. And I lived through this, and I was able to understand the mechanisms that causes this switch. And I was able to address what I call the real issues that were causing me to gain weight. And then over a 2.5-year period, I lost 220 pounds, got down to 183, which I'm 6'2", so pretty much a perfect body weight. And I did that without restrictive dieting. Now my diet definitely improved, but I started craving healthier and healthier foods. I started having more energy. So I started exercising more too, but it became an organic thing. It wasn't forcing, it wasn't struggle. And I lost that weight. That was over 10 years ago. And then, as I said, I put it together kind of in a formula that I published as the Gabriel Method. And since then, it's been translated to 16 languages, and it's really touched a chord with many, many people who know that there's more to weight loss than just calories in and calories out, that there are other things that are causing the problem. And that's really what my method's all about, all of those other things.
John, that really hits home with me as an individual, as well as I know for our audience, because we talk a lot about how the body seeks to store or burn calories depending on all these other variables, and just how, like, with age, it seems like we mysteriously, despite our best efforts, whether it's stress or something else, it's not that calorie equation. And I've got a book coming out called The Calorie Myth, speaking exactly to that. So what have you found are those things that do matter, that do flip that switch?
Well, the first question I asked myself when I came to this sort of place where I decided I was never going to diet again and started trying to find the answers myself instead of looking outside for other so-called experts who weren't able to help me, the first question I asked myself is, why do we have fat in the first place? Because in our modern day society, we don't need to carry around 200 pounds of extra weight. Why do we have it? What's the purpose of fat? Well, thousands of years ago, and I'm sure all of your listeners know this, but thousands of years ago, we needed fat to survive. We were living outdoors. We didn't know when our next meal was coming from. And if you went through a long winter when it was cold all the time, and you didn't know when your next meal was coming, so you were hungry all the time. So that combination of being cold all the time and being hungry all the time causes a certain chemical change in your body. Certain things happen. Your cortisol levels get elevated, your triglycerides get elevated, your pro-inflammatory cytokines, the pro-inflammatory hormones get elevated. All of these things act as a signal to your brain that you're in a famine or that you're in a hypothermia, chronic hypothermia, you're cold all the time. And the response that your body uses is to gain weight. So there's 4 things that your body does in response to this stress. One is you become insatiably hungry. Your brain stops listening to your stomach when it says it's full. So you're eating all the time. You start craving the most sweetest and fattening foods. Your metabolism slows down and your body loses the ability to burn fat. So when you combine all those things together, your body gets transformed into a human fat storage machine. And you really have to live through it to experience it. So I lived through this scenario where my body was chronically forcing me to gain weight. And we have this kind of myth, you talk about the calorie myth. The biggest myth is that overweight people are weak or lazy or overindulgent and they should just eat less and try harder. And I know that that's not the case because I'm not a weak person. I'm not lazy. I was running 3 companies at the time that I was gaining all this weight, and I could not lose the weight no matter what I did. And that was meeting with fitness trainers at 7 in the morning. And as I said, working face-to-face with Dr. Atkins. So you have to live through this switch going on. But what happens is, if you were in a famine or in chronic hypothermia, you would have these chemical changes that would activate this switch. You would become leptin resistant, so your brain would stop listening to the hormone leptin, which tells your brain how much fat you have on your body. So it's as if your brain doesn't know how much fat you have on your body anymore. It acts like you have no fat on your body. You become insulin resistant, so your insulin levels elevate, and insulin's the fat-making hormone. You combine all those things together, you're a fat storage machine. You have to live through it to experience it. It's not about weak or lazy. You have to reverse it. Now, what's interesting is that for some people, some of the stresses in our lives today, and they're physical and mental stresses, they could be either, but for some people, the stresses in our lives cause the exact same chemical and hormonal changes in our body as if we were in a famine or chronic hypothermia. So what happens is our brain effectively gets tricked into thinking we're starving to death, even if we're living in a land of all-you-can-eat excess empty calorie foods. And so when your brain is tricked because of the stresses in your life into activating this fat program, when there's all-you-can-eat excess empty calorie, starchy, carb foods, it's a recipe for disaster, and that's why we get morbid obesity. Now, there's several things that can activate this switch. Mental chronic stress causes chronic elevated cortisol levels, chronic elevated pro-inflammatory cytokines, and chronically elevated triglycerides. All those things are the exact same thing that happen when you're in a famine or chronic hypothermia. So chronic stress can cause your body to activate this stress. Medications can do it, processed foods can do it, digestion problems can do it, eating foods that cause an inflammatory response, anything, gum disease, anything that causes an inflammatory response will cause this chemical hormonal condition. So what happens is for some of us, for most of us that have a chronic weight problem, our brains are being tricked into activating a switch simply because the stresses in our lives are causing the same chemistry in our body as if we were in a famine.
John, it seems like one of the key distinctions you've made, and one of the reasons this resonates with so many people, is the eating, the massive hunger and the lethargy and the surplus calories in and deficiency of calories out. Like that, if you're not saying that doesn't happen, what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that is a symptom of an underlying disturbance. It's a symptom, it's not a cause. And what we need to do if we want to maintain lasting health and fitness is address that cause, that inflammation, that stress, that I call it a metabolic clog. And that's when it becomes a lifelong success. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Because if you try to focus on the calories in and calories out, it's like the tail wagging the dog. You're not dealing with the real issue. And your body will self-regulate once your hormonal balance readjusts. So if you look at just leptin resistance, for example, which happens when from the stresses of being in a famine, but also happens from a lot of the stresses in our lives. If you look at leptin resistance, what that does basically is it interrupts your brain's ability to accurately gauge how much fat you have on your body. So imagine for a second that you were 400 pounds, and I don't have to imagine this, I lived through this, but imagine you're 400 pounds and your brain actually thinks you have 0 fat on your body. Because that's what happens when your leptin resistance is severe enough, your brain acts and operates as if you have 0 fat on your body. So what would your brain do if you had 0 fat on your body? Your brain would make you insatiably hungry, it would lower your metabolism, you would eat and eat, you would be too tired to exercise, you would store all that weight very, very quickly as fat, and you wouldn't want to let go of it for anything. And that's what people are going through, and that's what needs to be addressed. Now, when you do address it, when you reverse the leptin resistance, the switch goes off. So what happens is, imagine this scenario. Imagine your brain is operating as if it thinks you have 0 fat on your body, yet you have 200 excess pounds on your body. Then all of a sudden, in an instance, your brain regains the ability to accurately assess how much fat you have in your body because the leptin resistance goes away, because the stress went away. And it's like your brain says, oh my God, where did this fat come from? We've got 200 pounds of fat on us. Now, what do you think your brain's going to do? In a second, you're not going to be hungry anymore. Your metabolism's going to speed up. You're going to become very efficient at burning fat. You're going to get rid of the fat. Your body knows how, and your brain and your body know how to burn fat when it wants to. And it wants to when you reverse this chemical condition. So the whole issue of calories in, calories out goes out the window when you regain the ability to accurately assess, when your brain regains the ability to accurately assess how much fat you have in your body, the whole issue goes out the window. And I have so many people say to me, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just not that hungry anymore. And I say, nothing's wrong with you. You've regained, your body is able to determine how much fat you have in your body and wants to lose weight now. Just leave it alone. You don't have to measure. You don't have to count calories anymore. Throw the scales out the window. Don't worry. You're addressing the real issues now. Your body will work with you now.
John, it seems like something that we can all get intuitively as well, because if you go in any typical workplace, not everyone, the vast majority of people are eating incredibly unhealthily, right? The average American is getting between 40 and 60% of their calories from processed garbage. Yet, if you go in that office and you see everyone who is eating unhealthily, some of them will be slim, yes, some of them will be average looking, and some of them will be morbidly obese. They are all eating the same amount of food.
Well, let me qualify that. They're all eating what they want to eat. They're eating the amount that they want to eat. So everybody thinks that thin people are more disciplined, but they're not. They're less disciplined. Like a naturally thin person is less disciplined than an obese person who's trying to lose weight, because a naturally thin person never thinks they eat whatever they want. It's just that they want less food or they're burning more calories. You watch a naturally thin person, they might eat pizza and donuts and all this kind of stuff, but they miss a lot of meals too. It's very rare that a morbidly obese person that's counting calories misses a meal just because they're too busy or they're not hungry. They're thinking when their next meal is, they're plotting when their next meal is, they're regulating, they're calculating. They don't miss a meal, and that's because their body's forcing them to gain weight and they're fighting it. Now, the interesting thing that you said about if you look in the workplace and some people are naturally thin, one thing I discovered is that stress for some people causes the same chemistry as a famine, so that you're going to be, those are the people that are gaining and gaining in the workplace, but stress for some people causes the same chemistry as if you were running away from a tiger. It's a different chemistry, and that chemistry makes your body more sensitive to leptin, reverses insulin resistance, and makes you thinner and thinner, speeds up your metabolism. So you got these people that are thin as a bone and stressed out all the time, eating junk food all the time. It's because the stress is causing different chemistry in their body, and their bodies are reacting differently. It's flipping a different switch. It's flipping what I call the get thin or get eaten switch, which is basically your body, if you were living thousands of years ago, outdoors where you were chased by tigers every once in a while and you had to sprint and run away, that's a different stress that causes different chemistry. That makes your body want to be as thin as possible for survival reasons. Typically, the people in the workplace that are really, really thin and effortlessly thin, the stress is causing that type of chemistry in their body, not the chemistry of the famine.
John, it seems like we've been individuals such as yourself, individuals such as myself, now even more and more in the scientific community. We could spend an hour here talking about the underlying endocrinology and biology about, just like look at hibernating animals, like the the scientific community has known for a long time that there's more going on with the regulation of body fat than us needing to do calorie math, especially when the concept of a calorie didn't even exist until the obesity epidemic started, at least not in the mainstream. So why do we still live in a biggest loser culture then? Like it seems like we all intuitively get this concept, if nothing else, of like slow metabolism, fast metabolism. But why is it so hard to let go of eat less, exercise more?
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And it's particularly frustrating for people that have bought into the whole medical paradigm hook, line, and sinker. And they go to their doctor and their doctor just kind of rolls their eyes and say, as soon as they walk in and says, well, you just got to eat less. And they say, I am eating less. And they go, oh, I bet if you wrote down everything you ate, you'd see, and just shames them, shames their kids, shames everybody gets shamed. And it's just not taught in medical schools. And Dr. Ron Rosedale, who I love, from the Rosedale diet, if you haven't interviewed him, I would recommend the interview. He's brilliant. But he basically calls it kindergarten medicine. It's kindergarten medicine to look at your body as like a sink that's calories in, calories out, where the calories are the water going in and the drain is the calories going out. It's kindergarten medicine. There's so much more going on in your body that has to be factored into the equation, and modern mainstream medicine is not factoring into the equation. It is shameless and, in my opinion, highly, highly irresponsible.
John, I don't know if you intentionally brought up a sink metaphor, but the calories in, calories out, applying it to a sink metaphor, it's interesting because I think we might actually be able to make that sink metaphor work in the proven model. So, for example, you talk about things like chronic stress. Well, imagine that chronic stress being the wrong quality of stuff going into your mind and the wrong quality of stuff going into your body, processed garbage, stressful things. And imagine that being like chronically having some hair fall down your drain, where it's not because too much water is going in. In fact, if more water goes in, more water will just come out. But if the wrong quality of stuff goes in the sink, then the sink loses its natural ability to drain that water. And then the water level rises and stays risen. And you can put less water in and you can flip more water out with a teaspoon. But that's not really solving that problem, that clog, that switch. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And there's a lot actually to that in terms of the real physiology of what's going on, because the reality is what's going on is that our cells are being blocked from getting hormonal signals. They're being clogged. They become resistant to the hormonal signals that they need to in order to lose weight. And so it's that blocking, it's that clogging. Also, we're blocked and clogged with toxins and all kinds of things like that. So it is literally a blocking and a clogging that does cause the problem. So I think it's a great analogy.
John, we've talked about the problem. We've talked about the misperception. We've talked about the discrepancy between what the mainstream is saying and what science has actually proven, and what you've lived through and what you've helped thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people live. What are you telling people? Like, what is the Gabriel method? Obviously, don't give away the farm, but like, what types of foods are we eating? What type of exercise are we doing?
I'm happy to give away everything as long as you want, because I want this information out there. But the first thing I'm doing with most people is dealing with mental and emotional stress, because mental and emotional stress is that clog. All day long, you're stuck in traffic, you're late for work, your boss is going to get mad, you don't know how to make your mortgage payment. That's hair going in your drain all day long. That's clog all day long. So I'm dealing with mental and emotional stress, childhood trauma, working with professionals that help work through childhood trauma issues, doing visualization to help reprogram your associations with stress, helping you calm your nervous system, meditation, all of these different things. So first and foremost, I'm dealing with mental and emotional stress. Secondly, I'm dealing with digestion, because most of us, our digestion is totally off. It causes inflammation. The inflammatory hormones activate this fat switch. So I'm doing things to reverse digestion problems, eating more live foods, having probiotics, digestive enzymes, finding alternatives to dairy and gluten and most grains, and then dealing with specific nutrients, getting omega-3 fatty acids, which we're starving for, which reduce inflammation, getting good sources of protein. So protein, live food, omega-3s at every meal. I try to get people to do visualization every morning. Having what I call a detoxifying lifestyle. That is, when you're taking in less toxins than then you're eliminating on a daily basis. So having lots of fresh green juices. Again, we're not measuring calories, we're not restricting anything, but we're focusing on adding really healthy things that'll improve digestion, nutrition, and detoxifying, and healthy habits like visualization to deal with stress. When you combine all those things over a couple of month period, you start to become less hungry, you start to have more energy. Then I introduce exercise in a very specific way to activate what I call that get thin or get eaten adaptation. So what we do is you're doing like sprints, like 30-second sprints, where you're visualizing that a tiger's being chased. They're being chased by a tiger because your brain doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined experience. So you're trafficking on that get thin or get eaten adaptation. You're tricking your brain into thinking you're living in a world where you need to be thin in order to be safe. And that combination of eliminating all the things that are causing the hair and the clogs in the drain by eliminating the inflammation and nourishing your body and reducing the stress, and then imposing stresses that get your body to want to be thin, that combination shifts your set point. So that if your set point was 300 pounds, your set point's now going to be 200 pounds. And maybe it'll take 6 months, but gradually over time, a momentum will develop and you will become that new set point weight.
John, we use a lot of the same words. I'm just kind of smiling. I got to get you a copy of the upcoming book. I think you'll like it. We might be like related in some way that we didn't know before. So it's fun. Right. Well, I love your first name, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, we have that connection there.
Well, John, you're obviously out there changing so many lives. What's next for you?
We got a lot of things that are happening. I've got a kid's book coming out in about 6 months. I've got a visualization book coming out in a year from now. In about 2 months from now, we're doing a 21-day meditation for weight loss challenge. And then in the beginning of the year, we've got, for the new year, we've got a new you 6-week step-by-step class where we have classes a couple of times a week, and I guide everyone through the process of turning off all these different switches, all the different hormonal things that are causing you to gain weight, and step-by-step embracing the Gabriel Method principles. And
John, I'm assuming folks can learn more about that at your website, which is thegabrielmethod.com, correct?
Yeah, we've got hundreds of pages of free information. We're always putting out webinars and seminars and question and answer sessions and free reports. So it's a good resource.
Excellent. Well, and also, folks, if you like what you heard today, which you undoubtedly must, because if you listen to this podcast, you like what John's saying, because we're saying a lot of the same stuff, that check out his book as well, The Gabriel Method. Obviously an amazing man. John, thank you so much for being the change that both you and I want to see in the world. Truly an inspirational story, and I appreciate all the passion and heart and mind that you dedicate to this cause.
My pleasure, Jonathan, and thanks so much. Your podcast sounds incredible, and I'm going to start listening to it more and more because you're out there, and I love the way you're connecting with people. So,
thank you so much, John. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation with this wonderful man as much as I did. And please remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon. Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.